buzz, gonna see my favorite hoes.
Ample thoughts, day or night, people shouting but never fighting.
Heading on up to AfterBuzz, gonna hope we don't Rambo.
We like those with big fat titties, man, I hope this show ain't shitty.
Come on down to AfterBuzz and meet some hoes of mine.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It is the year 2018. Welcome back.
Wow.
Good to be here.
How's your Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year? Nobody cares. Moving on.
Sweet.
It is, of course, South Park Weekly with Christian Blatt
Hi, everybody. You can find me at Christian DMZ.
and Stephanie Sabra.
What's up, everyone? You can find me at Steph Sabra.
And we're missing Stephen Lemieux.
But are we missing him? I ask it every week. We're not really missing him. He's just not here.
Sometimes.
Nobody responds. Maybe it's awkward for you guys at home to comment, but you can say, hey,
Yeah,
if
if
we
you
don't
miss
like...
Steven, please let us know.
Yeah. I know there's so many of you at home because you're all so funny and smart.
Oh, it's so smart. So smart.
All right, to kick things off in the new year, we thought, what better way to start than the top Kenny McCormick deaths in South Park?
Yeah, what a great way to kick off a new year. What better way than death?
Yeah, you know what? But he always comes back, so it's a new
true.
cycle, right? It's a new year, a new cycle.
It was hard, though. There were so many episodes. My sister was like, can you pick any episode to watch? I was like, no, we're just doing Kenny deaths. And she thought I was joking.
Well, it's about what 82 episodes in the series itself.
Yeah, and good question. Something I didn't research is when was the last time he died in an episode?
Put it down.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
right. It wasn't put
this
it down.
Because he was in
did.
memorandum.
That's right.
Yeah.
It wasn't. Yeah, but it's so rare now that he dies, and like we said during the regular season, we barely saw him this year. So in a way, he's dead to us. But we love Kenny
Never.
McCormick. No, I know. Sorry.
Before Put It Down, it was season 17 with Titties and Dragons.
Wow. So that's a few years. I knew it had been a few years since he had died, and Steph and I were talking before we started. There was that one season. Was it season 5 where he died, but he died for real?
Oh,
and they
yeah.
treated it like it was serious, which was
Because they were going to cut, I think the plan was to cut him almost fully because they were introducing new characters.
tweaking Butters.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
They're no replacement for Kenny.
Absolutely not.
He's the OG.
He is.
For sure. And so, in memorandum to Kenny, we picked the top 3 deaths. So let us start off with, of course, pick number 3. So we each get 3 picks. We'll do some honorable mentions. Why don't we start with you, Steph? What is your number 3 pick?
Okay, for number 3, I picked Spooky Fish. I think it's my favorite Halloween episode, and I love the way Kenny died in this episode. It just kind of no one was realizing it, and then he just got suction cupped into the bowl, which was a really cool shot. And I just like this episode in general, like the parallel universes, Indian burial grounds, Aunt Flo coming every week. It was a classic, and I love the spook cam of it all. At first it's like you forget that it's there and you're like, oh my god, why is it still there? And then I love that it was there because I love Barbra Streisand.
Good old Barbara.
Well, that's a great one, and it's funny because I remembered about half of the things you said, and then the other things I'm like, oh man, I wish I had time to watch that one because I really forgot most of that stuff, which is the best thing about the show. It's like, oh, I remember that one where this happens. There's probably like 10 things you didn't remember that were
Totally.
that are so random, which was the case when we were going through these. Do you want my pick, Phil, or would you have to go next?
I loved Steph's before we went on air, right? You were saying it before we went on air. I sometimes forget. Hopefully I'm not repeating something you've already said on the show. But how you said your sister, right, was like, oh, you're only picking...
Oh yeah, that was on the show.
Oh, see? There we
It was
go.
on the show?
I
I thought that was before the show, too.
Yeah,
We're old and not smart.
yeah.
Wow,
Kim
all right.
was surprised. She was shocked that we were only picking Kenny deaths.
Yeah.
Shows you how much I listen.
Oh, yeah, no, we did do that on the show. Okay. But
Moving
the best
on.
part will be in 5 minutes when we have this conversation again, Phil.
Yes.
Absolutely. With our old man farts.
Oh my. Ew.
You're going to have a nice whiff of that.
Yeah, well,
Caught in the middle.
you're next to the
Disgusting.
oldest guy on the show. But that's all right. My number 3 is from Gnomes Death by Underpants Gnomes. And this is one of my favorite episodes because it's just so random to begin with. Just this idea that, you know, there were the underpants gnomes coming at night and specifically stealing Tweek's underwear. But the death of Kenny, I had to look it up because I wanted to make sure I got it right. So the boys ask the gnomes why they're stealing people's underpants. While explaining the plan, one of the workers accidentally drops a cart full of underpants and it comes crashing down on Kenny's head, squashing him, as one of the gnomes put it, just like a bug. And unfortunately, the boys are so wrapped up in the plan that they barely noticed that Kenny is flattened like a pancake. Which, you know, it takes you out of it a little bit when you don't get the, oh my God, they killed Kenny, you bastards, which was in, you know, almost every episode for the first few years of the show. But anytime I can revisit Underpants Gnomes is a good one. And this was a particularly embarrassing way for Kenny to die when you think about being buried under an avalanche of underwear.
Well, because no one's going to believe that. No one believed about the Underpants Gnomes. So to say, like, hey, you got killed by one of the Underpants Gnomes workers, they're like, no.
No.
Absolutely not.
So it's very tragic indeed. And I hope that they've profited from Kenny's death in some way, shape, or form. Maybe that was just the phase 2.
They built a memorial, I think, and you know it's part of the tour, the Underpants Gnomes tour.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a good choice. I love this episode. I almost put it as mine. I just love the little note, the Underpants Gnomes.
Yeah,
It's one of like the classic cartoon characters they bring in.
it's one of those things that, you know, I think on a lot of shows they probably would have come back or something. But one of the best things about this show is there's like all these great crazy ideas and just never revisited.
Yeah, they can
don't-
keep
yeah.
making up stuff.
I'm glad that Towley comes back once in a while, but I think the Underpants Gnomes, it makes this episode better that, you know, we haven't seen them again. Remember Underpants Gnomes?
Oh, the member berries.
I remember.
Oh, the member berries are coming. All right. Well, do you guys remember in season 13 called The Ring? Remember when the Jonas Brothers were big and they were wearing their purity rings? Well, Kenny has a girlfriend, and this is what the premise of the episode is all about. But in terms of how he dies by syphilis.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Death by good old syphilis.
Yeah.
He just
never
really
too
wants to
safe.
stick it in her. He thinks he's going to get laid. These goddamn purity rings prevent him from doing it. And then eventually he gets syphilis and dies.
Serves
Just-
him right, really. You know.
Well, yeah, you got to wear your purity ring.
Yeah, exactly. You know, if you're gonna wear the purity ring, you have to be pure. And I think one thing we've learned about Kenny McCormick in all these years, not particularly
Yeah,
pure.
he's not.
Yeah.
This was pretty gross way to die.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Kenny. So there you have it. Those are our top 3 picks. Please let us know your comments on what you think the best Kenny deaths are. We'd love to see that. And of course, any other profanities you want to write in there too, by all means. Just as long as you hit that subscribe button. That's all we ask
that's really
for.
all that matters. Yeah.
Really. Subscribers.
Yeah.
Hashtag shameless. All right. Moving on to pick number 2. Steph, why don't we begin with you?
Okay, for the second one, and this is one of my favorite South Park episodes ever, is the Jeffersons. And I love the title because it's just like a play off an actual show based on a black family in suburban neighborhood. So it was really funny in that sense. And then just the fact that it was about Michael Jackson and his parenting skills and so I guess the main part of where Kenny dies, the important part, is when the boys try to steal his son and
Blanket.
Blanket.
Poor Blanket.
And he throws Kenny into the ceiling.
And it's one of the very few times that you've ever actually seen Kenny outside of the coat. You know, the movie.
Yeah.
And the movie and this. There's probably another one, but these are the 2 that I can think of. So when you actually see Kenny, it's always interesting, you know, because, well, he doesn't sound the way we're used to. But, you know, not the only episode of Michael Jackson, but probably my favorite appearance of Michael Jackson on the show.
I loved it because you got to see I feel like everyone's kind of curious what though his Wonderland had, like all the toys and stuff. Yeah, like everyone would actually want to go hang out there, just maybe not with him when you're a kid, but if you were a kid, you'd want to. And I loved how he was best friend. Cartman was like obsessed with him, and that it just also had good social commentary about police officers and good references. So I love this episode.
Yeah, because they couldn't get him because they didn't know if he was white or black.
Yeah.
Wait.
And he's like, I'd rather die than put away someone who wasn't for sure black.
Oh, how prevalent and still topical today.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I forgot about that.
You forgot about
No,
the
I
injustice
forgot
in
about.
the world?
I forgot that they have been doing this type of commentary forever.
Yeah.
Because so you remember kind of the stupid stuff that made you laugh because it was so crazy. You forget the actual points it's hitting a lot.
Yeah,
of
and
times.
also that the same problems that we have today. It's like, oh yeah, we had those 10, 15, 21 years ago. Yeah. So
We'd like to think we've progressed, but we haven't.
We haven't. No.
No.
I think we might have regressed.
We've all become Randy Marsh at this point. So, but I'm Lord. For me, my number 2 was from Worldwide Recorder Concert. Mostly because, again, I chose a rather humiliating death for Felix. Felix is my son. Why would I say that? For Kenny.
Freudian slip?
Jesus. Well, it's because he shits himself. And you see, I have seen my son shit himself a lot. So I guess that's why I made that Freudian slip. But yeah, Kenny does indeed poop himself to death. And this is the concert where every third grader is going to play the recorder playing My Country 'Tis a Thee. But like when this episode originally aired, of course, this responded with me like it probably did a lot of people because we all played the stupid recorder, which I don't quite know what that was teaching you how to do. Was it teaching you how to hate musical instruments so you didn't join the band, thus maybe being a little bit popular? I'm not quite sure what the idea of the recorder was.
Everyone hated you when you played it.
Right. And of course, the brown note, the low frequency that makes anyone instantly defecate themselves. And so, of course, the South Park boys switch the sheet music so everyone plays the brown note. But Kenny, unfortunately, shits himself to death. So, again, always a good episode to be able to revisit. But death by poop, that's not a great way to go.
Well, I don't know if this was the episode that sort of established that. I have to check. But I love it became a thing that you didn't know if someone was dead until they actually shit themselves.
Oh,
remember? Because then with Chef they did it in particular. It's like, oh no, he's not, and then it just shit just kept going and going. And
I think you're right. I think this is when they established that. Yeah.
So it was that was definitely funny. Good episode, and I do agree with recorders are very important. I feel like every orchestra has at least 12 units of the recorder.
Yeah,
we had to learn it.
Right.
My whole class did.
Well, it's such a classical instrument.
Yeah,
Beethoven didn't write a song without the recorder in it.
I mean, anybody who's been lucky enough to see Hamilton knows that the best part is the recorder that accompanies a lot of the music. And I definitely agree.
Do not disrespect Hamilton like that.
You didn't hear the recorder when you saw it?
Maybe in the part with the 10-year-old kid doing his 1 to 9.
No, in the latest Star Wars, John Williams, when he does Leia's theme, there's an undertone of recorder.
How could I forget?
And there is a deleted scene of the Porgs playing recorder down on the planet. So you see,
so it's a universal world
intergalactic
thing.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to Pink Eye.
Ah, Pink Eye.
Good old Pink Eye. So this is back in season 1. Where right off the bat, Kenny dies by a space station, but then he comes back to life as a zombie. And that's the best part about it. He rises from his grave, and then eventually he's crushed by a statue again and then a crashing plane. So multiple deaths in this one episode. Overall, just fun to see him as a zombie because everyone's just frightened of him.
Yeah.
And what else can you say?
Yeah, it was interesting because when you mentioned it, you just sort of reread a little bit and you're like, oh my God, that was season 1 and it was so long ago. But Yeah, I don't know how many episodes are there where he dies more than once. I don't think it
There's
happens.
only
Not too
Yeah,
many.
we were talking before we started. What I do remember is the first ever 2-part episode, which was Cartman's mom is a dirty slut or whatever it was called. In part 1, of course, he dies like he normally does, but in part 2, he just magically reappears and stands like, "Oh, hey, Kenny," you're just like treating it like it's a completely normal thing. And of course, the picture that Steve in the booth has right now is a particularly great one, by the way. The boys.
That's funny. So there you have it. Now, before we move on, I got to give a shout out to Steve, the engineer, because for New Year's, I don't know why he just didn't do it for Christmas, but apparently for New Year's, he got me a gift. Do you guys remember a little movie called Orgasmo
Oh, I do.
by Trey Parker?
I'm not gay or nothing, but you got a sweet ass.
Hey!
Hey! Steph, do you remember that movie?
No.
You should watch it. It's back in 1997. It's an oldie.
Is
but
it
goodie.
on Netflix?
I doubt it. I'll let you borrow the copy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
can I borrow
probably
it?
not,
Can I
yeah.
borrow your DVD?
No, I
It's a
mean,
VHS only.
Damn it.
I wonder where Steve had to like dig this up from.
You know.
That's
No,
a
I don't
great
know.
gift.
I actually legitimately own it. I own Orgasmo and Cannibal the Musical just because I like Trey
good
and Matt
call
so much.
on that. That
Yeah.
was before South Park and also a Trauma Productions film.
Yeah, well, Cannibal the Musical, they made like their spring break their junior year at college. So, obviously these guys were destined to be writing songs that were ridiculous and, being them.
You know.
You know.
You know.
Ah, come on, you know.
Come on.
All right, so we've got some honorable mentions. Of course, we cannot forget Sexual Healing, Season 14, Death by Erotic Asphyxiation. Which, what I loved about this episode is that although he dresses in a Batman suit, it kind of, it's a nod to his Mysterion costume, because Mysterion's much like Batman. And of course, if anyone, first off, the kids, they're told they have sexual addiction. And so Kenny, then, he gets explained, like, sexual addiction leads to you jerking off and wanting to hang yourself. And then, as all kids do, they try it out. And so he does.
As all kids do.
Well, I feel like when you're told don't do something, it's gonna lead to this. It's just one of those things. You're gonna try it out, and lo and behold, Kenny's that very curious kid.
Yeah, I mean, out of any of the kids in the show, I would say Kenny's the one you're like, oh, you know what? And this is probably not the first time that he did it, I think it's just the time that it went wrong.
Probably.
Yeah, because that's the problem, is you leave the belt on a little bit longer each time, and then the last time you just don't loosen it in time. Look, Steph, these are serious problems. You can laugh, but these are the sort of things that young boys are faced with, When do you let go of the
I was
belt?
reading an article today.
When do you
Since 2010, you know how many plane crashes there have been? 0. You know how many deaths by erotic asphyxiation? 20 million.
Wow, that's a lot more than 0.
Yeah. Yeah. Check
Dirty
it, bro.
lie.
Check it. Google it. Google
Yeah.
it.
Check your privilege, bro.
It's a fact. It's a fact.
Totally a fact.
On what?
It's a fact. Check it. Check it.
Wherever you check your facts, fact
Surrounded
checker.
by Cartman's.
Well, he's right there.
You guys are here.
Yeah, see, check it. Check my facts. It's a fact.
I'm more of a Heidi, actually. I don't think I'm really that much of a Cartman.
You're not
Because
usually.
I'm so funny.
You are.
And I'm so smart.
That's true.
Yeah.
No one's denying that.
So, second honorable mention is the episode called P. And I think you can guess what Kenny dies by.
Which is funny because when you said the title, I asked you had to remind me which one it was. And then as soon as you said it, I'm like, oh, yeah.
It's the episode where it's all P and no H. Because the pH balance is all off. And the fun part about this is that you don't really see Kenny. You just see the blonde hair, and they recognize him as Kenny. And so they say, oh my God, they killed Kenny.
Yeah.
And so it's quite funny that way because we get so few shots of the actual Kenny and we don't really see him. We just see the back of his head. But there you have it. Then going back to season 3, I thought a fun one was spontaneous combustion because everyone was holding in their farts. And so it wasn't just Kenny that died. It was a lot of people, but Kenny he just held in his farts too long, and he was one of the first to go.
Yeah, it's a great episode. Randy.
Poor guys. Yeah, Randy figures out that, you got to fart.
Yeah. Look, if anybody's gonna figure it out, it's Randy. I mean, like I
Absolutely.
said, we could use a little bit more Randy in our lives. Be more like Randy.
Great
Indeed.
call.
Indeed. And we were talking about this outside. It's kind of an honorable mention. It's not an episode in particular, but whenever the rats get involved.
Yeah, because when Kenny originally died, every time you saw the rats.
Yeah.
So when the rats would come in, it was always really funny that they were just waiting for this kid to die so that they could
Like
they
vultures.
could eat his remains. Yeah.
That's funny. It'd be funny if vultures came too. Also, I was reminded when we did the holiday special. I forget which episode in particular, but I was reminded they kept having Kenny do all these dangerous things, and you kept thinking he was gonna die, and he never did. Like climb the extremely high ladder, or like plug in the outlet where there was like water. And that was just fun to see because you were expecting it, playing with our expectations.
Well, and that's why, like now, like you said, and put it down. Kenny dies. You're like, oh, see, it actually catches you by surprise now. It's good that they kind of beat it to death, and literally, and then they've tried to use it in a way where it's at least special. So it's special last when you die, Kenny.
But the fun part is we didn't even see him actually die. It was just the end memorandum. Rest in peace. All right, pick number 1. Steph, you and I share the same pick, so why don't you kick us off?
Okay, well, it is an Emmy-winning episode, Best Friends Forever.
Yeah.
I'm really glad Phil and I picked this together, actually, because he doesn't know it, but we are going to be best friends forever.
Forever?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah, so
I'm so happy for you guys.
this is Death by PSP. Kenny gets his PSP, but then he's killed by the heavens, because that's the only way he can defeat Satan and the armies of hell. And this episode is so epic for so many reasons. I feel like it's really cool visually, and it's funny, and there's a lot of different anecdotes. I particularly love Satan's boyfriend, who is like Emperor Palpatine. And it's one of the few episodes where Kenny is the center, and he talks and you can hear him still with his hood on still. So I enjoyed that, and I'm thankful for this episode.
What I loved was the fact that heaven needed him to die, yet his friends wanted to save him. And at the time, that was the big thing, I believe in Florida, right? Where should we let him live or should we let him die? And so it was playing off of that.
Yeah, I think the Terry Schiavo case is what
is.
this was in response to, yeah.
And so it was funny. And it was also right around the time when I believe, it was because they parodied it, The Return of the King, right? Lord of the Rings. And they parodied the whole idea. This is even better than Lord of the Rings! And we see nothing of it. So you can imagine how epic it must have been.
When this head angel would always start sniffing the markers when he was using the whiteboard every second, that was hilarious. And I love when they were like, when the forces of hell need Kenny to be kept alive, they do what we always do, use the Republicans.
Absolutely. So there you have it. That was our number 1 pick. Christian, your
My number 1 pick, we already had one celebrity death for, death by celebrity for Kenny, Michael Jackson. Well, mine is Ozzy Osbourne, and this is from the episode Chef Aid. And as people know, Ozzy would on stage bite the head off of bats, not real bats, as people maybe were surprised to find out, but he bite the head off of bats. But at the Chef Aid show, no bats. So what could he possibly bite the head off of? I know, Kenny McCormick. And so it's, I think just because it's Ozzy, the Ozman himself, and I did consider actually picking the Jeffersons episode for this too. But I went with Ozzy, and this for me, it's probably my favorite Kenny death. Just because of, look, it involves celebrities. So that obviously makes it way more important. Way more important.
Certainly does. So that's a good choice. And that's from season 2.
Yeah.
Season
so
2.
we
a lot of good deaths early on.
Yeah, well, because they stopped doing it as often, I guess, is
No.
really what it came down to.
Absolutely. And then they used to do, in the early seasons, they did up to like 24 episodes. So we
Yeah.
were getting a lot more deaths on a lot more frequently.
I feel like a lot of the older episodes too kind of had a lot more production into it. Like when I was looking past the episodes, like you were saying, you're like, I forgot about that. Like I forgot.
Yeah.
I kept seeing this different, like the use of different types of animation way more back then.
Yeah, I mean, well, the first episode when they first did it, they actually like cut out construction paper, and it took them forever apparently. But so I think that they've streamlined the production. But in a way, sometimes there's things about the earlier episodes that actually look better than they do now because they had to take a little bit more time. But I don't know, they're just able to do so much more with it. But yeah, if you think about it, the early episodes always would have a few things. Kenny would die. They always had the stand. I learned something today, and you always had a chef song. So it was almost like in the 22 minutes, already like 5 of those minutes were already spoken for things that they were going to have to get in there. So it's great to see the way the show evolved, but then when you watch the older episodes, it's like, oh yeah, I learned something today. The old episodes were great. And there's a
Jonas Brothers.
yeah.
With Mickey Mouse. Remember, that was funny too. Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, that Mickey Mouse was like, oh, that yeah.
He kept them in line because they wanted to do their own thing and not have to do the purity ring, but
Yeah.
Mickey Mouse would not let them. Good old times. Well, one of the things, shoot, I had it and then I lost it. It got to a point with South Park where, oh my gosh, they killed Kenny. They tried to just speed it up and just like get it through it. So that sort of was funny after a certain point too.
Right, and then we were talking before the show, and this was definitely before the show. I remember for sure. I can't remember if it was the 50th episode or the 100th episode, but they showed that Kenny's mom would give birth to a new Kenny every episode. So it was just sort of like a little joke that's where the new Kenny kept coming from. Is just that his mom would just have another baby, and that's why that Kenny was always able to come back. There's a little logic flaw there, but it's South Park, so let's not spend the rest of the episode trying to break it down.
You know what's great? We talked about this before the show, but how Steph was saying her sister.
Oh my god.
Her sister what?
Her
What did she
sister.
say?
Her sister was saying how many episodes of just Kenny there are.
Really?
It's just, yeah.
You should, I didn't even know you had a sister. Did we talk about that?
We tell you,
No.
I don't know.
She's
Was it
here,
your brother?
and we just had this conversation.
Wait, where's
I
Steven?
don't think we just had the conversation.
Wasn't Steven just here a minute ago? What happened?
I don't know.
All right.
Fools.
So here's what I'm thinking for the next couple of weeks. We may do it, we may not, but we've got the State of the Union coming up, so maybe like best political episode or parody of a person, whether it be Obama, whether it be Hillary,
Mr.
Trump.
Harrison.
Yeah, any one of those people.
I mean, early episodes have Bill Clinton in it too. So I mean, if
Even
you're,
the older episodes
Yeah.
have Clinton in it.
yeah, so you can get a lot of people in there. Yeah.
I'm Bill. I'm Bill too. So yeah, we could definitely get a lot of people. Saddam Hussein, he's a political leader.
Sure
We can
is.
count him.
Yeah.
Osama bin Laden.
Sure.
That's a great episode when they kill him.
Oh yeah, we covered that last
We've
time.
got episodes with President Bush. We've got episodes with light episodes with Al Gore. I don't remember much.
Oh, Al Gore.
Obama,
Remember, he's
McCain.
the Man Bear Pig.
Oh, the Man Bear Pig, of course.
The
Yeah,
infamous.
exactly. Yeah.
So we've got
I'm
that.
so serial right now. Yeah, actually, you know what? I'm gonna. That's gonna be on my list. I'm just gonna ruin
Just
it
foreshadowing.
Yeah, I'm just letting everybody know that Man Bear Pig is now on my list because, and we could do honorable mention because Trey and Matt had the sitcom "That's My Bush," which was the Bush family living in the White House. That I think they only did 6 episodes of. I guess because they thought it was in bad taste after 9/11 to have a sitcom about the president. But whatever. It was a great show, and I'm sure people can still find it. So, just a little plug,
tease.
little plug for something people can go find.
Absolutely. Speaking of plugs, where can the people follow you guys?
You can find me at Steph Sabra on Instagram and Twitter.
And you can find me at ChristianDMZ on Instagram and Twitter, and you can find me all over AfterBuzz. Sunday Star Trek, Monday Marvel, Tuesday Trump, Wednesday here. Oh, that's a lot of stuff.
Yes, it is. All right, guys. Thank you guys, as always, for joining us. Happy New Year to you all. We'll be doing a lot of these fun things, hopefully, or maybe not. Hopefully, we'll get Steven back. Leave a comment.
Give us
if you miss him.
suggestions for future topics that you'd like us to do.
Absolutely.
Like why we're such douchebags. Like
Best
why
sexual
too?
episode.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
That would be a good one.
Yeah.
It's
Right?
like all of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Favorite Mr. Slave episode. We'll get really obscure at one point. We'll get very specific.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ.
All right. And you can follow me at Phil Svitek and, of course, follow at AfterBuzz TV. Thank you, guys, as always. We'll see you next time. Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.